Doc's neighbors are starting to come out of their house and go, what the heck? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine, if slightly delayed, radio program, podcast, and videocast known internationally as the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'.
Hi, Mom.
We are live at Doxneyland.
That's us.
That's Dox's house.
Dude, this place is awesome.
Greg Doxakis, who's a regular guest on the show.
That's me.
With Plantation Rum, has invited us to his back porch where we can smoke and drink rum and talk about what's going on at Plantation. And I'm going to tell you, I've had an advance sampling, let's say, of the latest Plantation product. And I can already tell you, Ian, you're in for a treat with this
I haven't
Isle of
had
Fiji.
it yet.
Yeah.
He hasn't shared with you?
This is something else. No.
Is
To be honest.
Did I get left out of the loop here?
Well, here's what happened. Docs and the Plantation folks were kind enough to send a bottle to my house. And I was going to bring it on the show, but then around that same time, we had arranged for Docs to come on. So I wound up finishing the bottle, and then I thought, well, I haven't shared any of this with Ian, so I went to Specs and bought another bottle. The problem is that one's now about half gone. And but now, in fairness, it's not just me. My wife, whose favorite spirit in the world is the Plantation pineapple, and that's something we always have at the Cruz household. She also absolutely loves the Isle of Fiji. So I'm not the only one who's been tapping the bottle. Is what I'm.
This is the first I've even heard of
this. Yes. Well, see, I was going to bring it in on the show and then let you take the rest of the bottle home, but those plans were altered.
But what he's not telling you is he got the bottle on Monday, though.
Yeah.
So
So this is all
3 days later, a bottle and a half later.
I bought the bottle. Got the bottle on Monday. Bought the second bottle on Tuesday, and here we are.
Working on bottle number 3 on a Thursday.
But no, this is something I think you're going to be very, very interested in tasting. It's completely different, but in the most wonderful way. Now, our show is number 208. We are all about craft beer, fine spirits. Today we'll be talking a lot about rum. And hand-rolled cigars. And we're brought to you by mycigarshirts.com. I'll get to that in a moment. But, Ian, we had some technical difficulties. We were trying out a whole new on-location setup. And we just couldn't get part of it to sync properly.
Yeah.
We didn't want to go later than a half an hour past our normal start time. So, fortunately, you brought along your world's largest iPad.
So this is our backup. The problem we were having is a time sync. So getting the video and the audio to sync up time-wise, the audio had a little bit of a delay. So we were gonna, if we would have gone live, we would have looked much like Kung Fu Theater.
Yes, and it would have been fun for a little while, but I don't know about for the whole show. So, in any event, right before what would have been showtime, I lit my cigar so I could not have to light it, during the intro to the show and stuff. It's hard to do that and hold a mic at the same time. And as a result, I'm already now down past the band. So I am really enjoying a cigar called The Tea, which is a collaboration between 3 different cigar makers. It's put out by Caldwell Cigars. Robert Caldwell, Matt Booth, who has a secret man crush on my partner Ian, and AJ Fernandez.
Who doesn't?
Who I have a secret man crush on. So
Right.
so it's just the way it all kind of comes together. But this is a wonderful cigar. It's nice and complex. This is the Churchill, and I'm about 2/3 of the way into it already. But really nice woodsy notes on this. Some almost like, what almond paste tastes like?
Yeah.
I'm getting notes that are very much like an almond paste on this. It's really delicious. Really,
Awesome.
really a nice
Marzipan.
nice cigar. Marzipan, thank you. But marzipan can sometimes, like marzipan cookies, sometimes that's a little too much. This is like perfectly balanced.
I just lit this Mil Diaz.
Yeah, tell me about that
I don't
cigar.
know anything about it, other than I think I'm pretty sure that I got this at Galveston Island Cigar Lounge, and Alan Denny was there, and he recommended this, and it was as I was going out the door because I'd already stayed for a cigar, and so I took it and thought I'd review it on a show, and I just hadn't had a chance to, so here it is.
So what's your initial thought on it?
Initial light blast of pepper with a lot of like green pepper notes that show up towards the back of the palate, and some woodsy kind of campfire notes going on in it.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's got and some like pecan shell
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of
Kind of that deep
astringency
yeah.
going on. It's kind of neat. But I like I'm literally, you guys saw me light this, so I'm literally that far into it. So I'll give you updates as we go along.
That sounds fair.
My first thought was how does he know what a pecan shell tastes like? But then again, I've tasted pecan shell.
Yeah,
I think we've all
inadvertently,
tasted.
yeah.
If you've tasted a pecan, you've gotten a little piece of pecan shell.
And it's
before.
it's not the taste of the pecan shell that's the problem when that happens. It's trying to crunch it up.
That instant astringency that hits your lips too.
But it's nice, I bet, in the combination of flavors
It
of
is.
the cigar.
It is. There's a little sweetness too that's happening, and I like the retrohale on it already.
Now, Doc's has lit up a gem here. This is a wonderful cigar that I've got a couple of resting in my humidor, actually, that my wife bought me at Christmas time, or at my birthday, actually. But this is that Arturo Fuente. Ian, I'm drawing a blank now.
That's the
which Fuente
Reserva
is this?
Viejo.
Thank you.
Maduro.
Any thoughts on it initially there, Docs?
You know what? Yes, I used to work at Downing Street, and my cigar knowledge was keener than it is now. I've forgotten many things, but one thing that first came to mind though is that the outer wrapping is a little oily, and I like that. I've always liked that in a cigar, and you can taste it a little bit, and it's just got a little hint of cocoa in there too that I like.
That.
It's nice. Yeah. It's a good smoke.
It really is a wonderful cigar. Yeah, it really is. Well, we are invading Doc's house and drinking as much of his plantation rum as we possibly can during the show tonight. The show today. Doc's
it'll be midnight by the time we're done.
I think so.
When
With
you see the
starting
lights
everything.
come on.
Yeah. So Docs was kind enough to invite us over here so we could smoke. We had talked about having him on the show to talk about this new Isle of Fiji rum, and he sent a photo of this area, and I thought, I don't know what the rest of his house looks like, but if I lived there, I would be spending all my time.
Oh,
out.
yeah, this is beautiful. This patio
wonderful.
is so nice.
And the rest of his house is gorgeous, by the way. Mm-hmm. We're actually right on the water here. Is this a canal that you're
Lake
on?
Olympia.
Lake Olympia.
Lake Olympia.
It's
In Missouri City, the Paris of Fort Bend County.
I like it. Well, we are thrilled to be here. It's a beautiful October day in our hometown of Houston, Texas.
By beautiful October day, for any of those who are outside of Texas, what we mean is it's below 90 degrees, so we're not sweating to death.
Yeah, that's right.
It's actually probably mid-80s right now.
And we got good breeze. We got good breeze.
Yeah.
Our show is brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. Great shirts for cigar smokers and the people that love them.
Why?
To buy them as gifts because cigars.
Yeah.
Lots of new additions.
I saw that. I kind of want to get a hoodie.
MyCigarShirts.com. Yeah, did you see the hoodie?
Yeah, the hoodie looks good.
There's a really cool zip-up MyCigarShirts.com hoodie, and then there's several really good-looking ones, including, I think, my new favorite, which says, I just want to smoke cigars and pet my dog.
Yes.
That's pretty
I like
pretty
the one
cool.
that says, I love cigars, you not so much.
Yeah, there's a little bit of attitude to some of the shirts, and there's a new design now for the one that says, "I always smoke in moderation, one cigar at a time." Yeah, so it's that kind of stuff. So check it out; it's great for you to get for gifts. My wife has already bought like half of the gifts she's giving to the family and stuff for Christmas this year. So if you're doing early Christmas shopping, we've already had Amazon Prime Day. The so-called Black Friday is not far away, so it's not too early to get your gift shopping on. So check them out. They're a sponsor of the show, MyCigarShirts.com. Okay, I brought beers. Docs has the rums. I brought beers. We'll be trying.
Docs has a lot of rums.
He has a lot of
Do you
rums.
think we're going to be able to get through all of them in this one single 6-hour show?
I should say that we went upstairs to Doc's rum bar.
To the library.
To the library before the show started. And the last time we had Docs on was when we were doing the
Zoom meeting.
the Zoom shows, and he was positioned with his Zoom camera in front of that library bar and all the bottles of Plantation Rum. So I'm going to say it's better than going into space.
I don't think he was paying attention to his Zoom thing because I kept saying, "Get out of the way so I can look at your rum," but he never moved.
He wasn't reading your instant messages.
Kept sending him messages.
We selected it. We hand selected a few. Of course, we're going to try the Fijis and a couple of things that are available in our market, but we hand selected a couple of things that aren't available just to talk about it and to rub it in.
It's going to be wonderful. And by the way, I have not tasted, in addition to the Isle of Fiji, which I can't believe how reasonably priced that is. I want to say it was like $20 $25.
I think it's $25 on the shelf
At Specs. That was I couldn't believe it. I almost bought like 12. But in addition to that, you've got a special is it an offshoot
No,
of Isla Fiji? It's another Fiji product, though,
it's
right?
a single vintage. It's a 2005 Fiji rum. It's going to be higher in proof. It's going to be all column still, I believe, because that's right. It's all column still, where the Isla Fiji is going to be a blend of pot and column still.
Now, you will notice, by the way, that anytime you use the phrase higher proof, Ian immediately perks up and becomes even more interested.
You know, I was telling Docs I had a whiskey last night while I was doing the dishes, and I walked over to look at my whiskeys, and I was feeling more bourbon than Scotch, and I looked at all my bourbons, and I realized that I think every one of them that I have is like 60 proof and above.
Yeah. So you're like me. I drink when I do the dishes too. I do the dishes at my house. My wife thankfully puts them away because I hate drying them and putting them away. But I don't mind doing the dishes because what I do is that's when I try new beers. I get beers out of the beer fridge and pour myself a beer while I do the dishes. And every dish or two, I stop and take a sip. And so we'll be trying some interesting beers today from Novo Brewing Company in Corrales, New Mexico. We'll be trying their Saul Fruitman Hazy IPA, and yes, it is a spin on Saul Goodman and the whole Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad franchise. That's who it's in tribute to, at least. And it's a hazy IPA from Corrales, New Mexico. From a little closer to home for us, from Brenham, Texas, near Austin, Brazos Valley Brewing has produced a what looks like a very interesting Imperial pumpkin porter called Cherub, which is a nod to the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah.
Do Cherub, of course, and it's got a big pumpkin on it. And we're doing at least one pumpkin beer on every show between now and Thanksgiving.
You have to. You have to. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And finally, super excited about this. We've had Lone Pint Brewery. We've loved pretty much every one of their beers we've ever tried. They're from Magnolia, Texas. And we've had their Tornado Shark on before. It's an American strong ale. Today we'll be having a special 7th anniversary American Strong Ale edition of the Tornado Shark called Tornado Shark BA, and it has been resting in applewood bourbon barrels, I believe. We'll get to it when we pull the bottle out to take a look
barrel
at it.
aged.
Yeah, so a barrel aged Tornado Shark. So that plus the Plantation Rums. Yeah, we may be here a while. Doc, you have any appointments? Anytime you need to be kicking us out by, let us know.
I'm missing tons of them, but who cares?
Okay.
We're drinking rum, smoking cigars, and a little bit of beer.
We will have drinking news on the program today. Our drinking news teaser headline is "Gee, your hair smells like pumpkin." So perfectly timed for the upcoming holiday season. Plus, Heineken has been fined for forcing pubs to limit sales of their competitors. We'll talk about that and tell you what those guys have been up to. And there's a new non-plantation rum that's out. I don't have it here to try, but I want to get Doc's input on it. I know it's probably not cool to talk about competitors, but this is a kind of a different situation because the band Kiss has debuted a new rum called Black Diamond Rum. So we'll share the story, and
do we know where it's from?
You can weigh in. I think it'll tell us in the story, so we'll try to figure that out. So a lot going on today. We have a lot of tasting to do. So I tell you what we'll do is we'll take a break. We'll get right back and start this tasting.
Real
yes.
quick, I just want to give a shout out. I see that Wiki Brian is actually in the comments today,
and we have been missing having Wiki Brian on the live show. So thank you for joining us, Brian. Maybe you can help us do a little research on the Kiss Black Diamond Rum.
Yeah, I got a chance to actually have a beer with him this last week, and that was really nice because I hadn't seen him in quite a while.
Plus, there's a new company that says they can make top-shelf whiskey in a few days.
Ooh, I read about that.
Yeah, so that we'll talk a little bit about that and see if that's interesting. Yeah, one of the great things about rum is that it doesn't require, although there are certainly some very highly aged rums, but rum doesn't necessarily require the same aging as whiskey or bourbon in order to achieve a real good taste and a real. Oh wow, we lost a sign. Was that something important?
I think that was God getting angry about you talking about rum not having to be aged.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, no, it does have to be aged, but it doesn't necessarily. There are some excellent rums, including some of the ones we're going to taste today, that aren't aged as long as you would expect to age a whiskey to achieve the same kind of the same kind of brilliance. Am I wrong about that?
The same kind of mellow sweet.
Yeah.
I don't think what you said is wrong. I think that everything we're going to try here today is aged what about as you would expect a quality bourbon or a whiskey to be aged.
Okay.
But I think that the only caveat that I would put on that is just like whiskey, it doesn't have to be super old to be a delicious rum.
Okay.
And in fact, a lot of times, and we were talking about this upstairs, and we're going to try one of these. Is that sometimes aging it can, in my opinion, kind of take the fire out of it. Take the
it can melt
not
too
the
much?
fire. Yeah, just it's almost like it's kind of lost the spirit.
Okay.
Beer can do that too. I've had beers that I've cellared for a little too long, and sometimes they start to lose it, or they just go bad.
And you're not talking about like an IPA or something that's supposed to be consumed fresh.
No, I'm talking about ones that you generally will sell, and they all have like. I had some of the sour.
Yeah, like some of the farm
Magnum
ale
trucks.
type?
That's the one. The real ale.
Okay.
But I had one of their sour ales. It was a 2016, and I opened it last week, and it was right on the edge. Like you could tell, it's starting to get a little bit soy sauce. Sometimes it happens. Like
I had a
sometimes
similar.
you can overage.
I had a similar experience with a bomber of the Buffalo Bayou gingerbread special that they do at Christmas. It was just I should have done it a year earlier.
Right.
You know, it was just maybe a year too old, and it was still good, but it wasn't sublime like I'd had that before.
And to back up what Docs was saying too is I think if you've got a whiskey that's got a really nice bite as part of its palate and what makes it good, and you age it too long, a whiskey or a rum or any spirit, then you can lose some of that, and that might not be the best thing.
All right. Well, we'll talk about rum aging. We'll talk about the different styles. What is fascinating to me is how rums are so different depending on where they are distilled.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and how distinct some of those differences can be. So we'll get into a few of those variations here on the show, and I think we should start with the Isle of Fiji in the next segment.
No question about it.
All right, that's coming up next. Smoking and Toasting, live from Doc's place, where we're going to do our best to put a dent in his extensive collection of plantation rums. We'll be right back.
I feel like I'm the only one that hasn't tasted the Isle of Fiji.
All right, welcome back at Smoking and Toasting, second segment of show number 208. We're all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And we are brought to you by mycigarshirts.com because cigars. Yes. Ian, one of the things we were talking about just during the break is that you will most likely wind up with ash on your shirt at some point during the show. So we'll be waiting for that to happen.
Watch for that. I'm going to try and tend it.
Yeah.
But I have 2 cigars, so I have a lot of chances.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I brought another as well since I lit this one before what I thought was going to be start time at the show, and then we wound up getting a little delayed, but that's okay. Oh, one of the things I want to share this with you. I have a list I want to share with you as we get ready to try this plantation rum
The list.
from Isle of Fiji of 6 bottles of beer that even Chris Hart can't get his hands on.
Oh,
And the reason I say that is because Chris Hart, who's our dear friend and does the Whiskey Neat show and is responsible for putting together the Houston Whiskey Social, I love him dearly. I love listening to his show. But every time I hear him go on and on about some fantastic whiskey that he and a guest are tasting, I find out that it's not available. You can't buy it. So we tease him a lot about that. But there are 6 very expensive bottles of beer.
That's a little bit of jealous teasing, by the way.
Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. 6 bottles of beer that I want to share with you that, should you happen to see these, grab them because they're very hard to find and they can be a little expensive. We'll pitch in if you get one of these and drink it with you. You can come on the show and share it with us. At number 6 on the list of 6 is the Westvleteren, Westvleteren, Westvleteren 12. It's a Belgian monk-made beer, and the monks at the Westvleteren Brewery make it in extremely small batches. It's a dark amber color, and cases of it in the U.S. have been known to go for $1,000 a case.
Wow.
Retail, yeah. So that's number 6 on.
Is that a 6-bottle case or a
our
12-bottle
list.
case?
I'm assuming it's a well. That'd be a great question.
Doesn't matter.
And
At that point, when they're
it's still a little out of my price range. Any way you go. Three Floyds is a brewery we're familiar with, but the Three Floyds Dark Lord beer. Three Floyds is out of Indiana. Prepare to shell out $150 to $200 for 3 bottles of this Russian-style Imperial Stout, along with 1 or 2 vintage releases and a tote bag. But tickets, when they actually sell tickets to get in and buy this when they release it, and they usually sell out in minutes. The 2020 Dark Lord Day was supposed to take place in May, but it has been postponed till further notice due to the pandemic. So if you're anywhere near Three Floyds in Indiana, you might want to check their website and see if they've announced a new release date for this year's
Also,
Three Floyds.
shameless begging. Send us some.
Yes, absolutely. We'll send you back so much stuff. We promise it'll be worth your while.
free endorsement. You can't buy that, literally.
That's right. Schlorsbach.
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah. Schlorsbach 57. It's a 57% ABV beer. Yes, it is. It's a German brewery, and they proclaim it to be Schwarzbrau, the strongest beer in the world. It's an Eisbach-style beer, part of a back and forth with Brewdog from here in the States, and it is an extremely limited release, as in fewer than 40 bottles of this are released.
Brewdog's been doing this for a while because I had one of the tactical nuclear penguins
Yes.
a while back.
Do you remember what that set you back?
Well, it was a gift.
Okay, so you don't know.
So I don't know, but I'm assuming at the time it was probably, I don't know, I'll have to ask my brother because he's the one who bought it. But he got it, I don't even think he got it super expensive, but that was a 32% beer.
Yeah.
And I split that bottle with 3 other friends, so it was,
Yeah.
you know, one 12-ounce split 3 ways, and you're feeling it by the end of that. That was crazy.
No, seriously, I was about to ask the question with the 57% beer. How much, how big is that bottle?
It looks like, and I'm only looking at the illustration, but it looks like it's a 12-ounce bottle.
Yeah,
Okay, and how much of that, as a beer drinker, would you drink in one sitting? The whole thing?
It's 0.33 liters. I just enlarged the picture.
you
I
would
don't see it.
definitely share it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a $300 bottle if you're able to
Well,
find
not
one.
only that, but even the 32% that I had was so strong. You can only do so much, you know.
Yeah.
But does it drink strong on the throat? Is it? Are you feeling it on the back end? On
You
the
definitely
reflex or
can
something?
feel the booze. You can definitely taste and feel the booze in it.
It's a beer with a whiskey hug.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at 32%, that's what most liqueurs are
Right.
at that point. That's what Jaeger's like 32% or something like that. Goldschlager or something like that too.
Right.
So that's literally, and 57% is higher than most whiskeys. That's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if you can really even call it a beer at 57%.
Well, you know how they get that percentage out of a beer like that? What
How?
they do is they brew the beer and then they freeze it. And this is why it's such a small batch. And then they freeze it.
and then they
And the
allow it to thaw.
alcohol doesn't freeze.
That was my follow-up question because it's literally impossible to get a fermented beverage
Correct.
past that percentage.
So the
and
alcohol,
that's,
so they'll have to brew a huge batch. They freeze it, and the alcohol doesn't freeze, and they take that out. We'll call it the extract for now. And then they'll refreeze it, and they'll do that until they can...
Until they've got that ABV up where they want
you've
it.
basically got it, up to where you want it. But that's the only way to get a... Like you said, you can't ferment it to that.
The number 3 beer on this list comes from a place that surprised me a little, from Sapporo. It's the Sapporo Space Barley. They released it first back in 2009, made it using barley that was descended from, you're going to love this, grain that spent 5 months aboard the International Space Station in the Zvezda service module. According to Sapporo, the point of the experiment was to study the purpose of achieving self-sufficiency in food in the space environment. They put out a run of about 250 cases. They sold for about 10,000 yen each. That's around $100 a case. And the proceeds were donated to charity. There are likely still some unopened bottles floating around somewhere.
Yeah, I see what you did
see what I
there.
did there? But expect to pay a hefty premium if you were to locate a bottle of the Sapporo Space Barley.
Well, it sounds popular, and I think it's going to take off.
Number 2. Oh, man. This is going to be a long show. And we haven't even started drinking the rum yet. And number 2.
You haven't.
Number 2 is the Sam Adams. Believe it or not. It's the Sam Adams Utopias.
Oh, I've had that.
These come in that really, it almost looks like a wine decanter, the shape of the...
It's like a plunger.
Of the bottle. Or a plunger,
It's
yes.
a pot still.
Yeah, it is about $210 for a 25.5-ounce bottle. It's a blend of batches of beers that are matured for up to 24 years in a variety of different barrel types.
Now, I've had that a few times. And remember we talked about aging beers and cellaring beers. Because aging beers and cellaring beers is actually a different thing. So we can get into that later. But I have a friend of mine that had... Eisenbach, kind of like Distilly. Brian, Wiki Brian's going in. Yeah, so my friend Biscuit has shared his bottles of Utopias. And what's funny is some of them are so good, but there's been a couple that just went straight to soy sauce because they were a little too old. Like, that happens.
The ABV on it clocks in at about 28%, which is high enough to cause it to be banned in certain states.
Mm-hmm.
They say expect a drinking experience, and you can speak to this, that's more on par with a brandy than a beer, a more viscous and almost syrupy mouthfeel with deep malty flavors. That's number 2. At number 1 is Brewdog's The End of History. Mm-hmm. It's Brewdog is a Scottish brewery. They first released this collector's beer a decade ago. The ABV 55%, and a bottle cost close to 700 pounds. Each of the bottles was stuffed into a unique piece of taxidermy. That
I remember reading
like
about
a
this.
squirrel or
This
a
has been
rabbit,
around
right?
for a while.
In 2016, it returned, priced at $20,000 a bottle. $20,000.
That's crazy.
The point was to raise funds to open a Brewdog brewery in Ohio, which they were ultimately successful in doing. If you can still find a bottle from the original release and feel like coughing up the funds for it, they say expect a blonde Belgian-style beer made using nettles from the Scottish Highlands and fresh juniper berries.
That's interesting. But at the end of the day, this is popular because it's served in a very unique koozie.
Well, yeah.
It's literally it's in a scroll. Like, I live 10 minutes from a golf course, guys. Come on, we can go by Circle K. We can get some beer, but we're gonna be rich overnight, man.
We'll pick up some of that malt liquor. Ian knows which ones, and we'll grab some squirrels and groundhogs and make us some money. So anyway, I'm relatively sure Chris Hart doesn't have any of those beers, but if he does, I will stand corrected. Because if anybody would have them, it'd be him.
That right?
Yeah. All right, so let's talk rum now. This is the Isle of Fiji. Ian, you have now been able to grace your palate.
I have been researching this. I'm trying to catch up because apparently you're a bottle and a half ahead of me.
At least.
Bottle and 3/4, perhaps. But what are your initial thoughts on the Isle of Fiji?
It's delicious. This is way too easy to drink. It's got such a wonderful...
I think now you understand about the bottle and a
sweetness.
half.
So, yeah, no, I know. I totally understand. I'm not. That doesn't make me not upset with you,
Yes,
but
okay.
I do understand. Like, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got such a beautiful sweetness to it, and the complexity of flavor. There's also some vanilla, and that present sugar cane that is so nice in there.
It's got a wonderful sort of funkiness to it, though.
Smells
That is, and sometimes that scares people a little when you say it's got a funkiness. But to me, that's what makes it so unique. And unlike a lot of other rums that I've tasted with some of this funkiness, this one is extremely easy to drink, as Ian was saying.
So, and I always kind of stutter a little bit when we use the word funkiness when describing anything other than Jamaican rum, because Jamaican is kind of known for that whole girl, that Jamaican funk. And so I whenever there's something that you don't expect, I think we have a tendency to describe it as funk,
Okay, so
and that's not wrong.
Help me with a better word then.
So this one, it has an oddness to it, but it's an inviting way. So, but keep in mind, this is something that's this is not a Caribbean rum. This is from the South Pacific.
Right.
So we get this one from a distillery in South Pacific. That was what kept me from being a huge star, as I can't say the word Pacific or specific without mingling the two. So from the South Pacific, but like all plantation rums, it's going to go back to France and get aged longer in our Pierre Ferrand cognac barrels.
Right.
So at least 2 years in that bourbon barrel in Fiji, and then at least another year in our cognac barrels in France.
The oak and the aftertaste, like I'm still enjoying it.
Yes.
The oak and the aftertaste is fantastic. And when you said the cognac barrel, the cognac is giving it. I think that cognac is what's one of the things that's giving it that oddity in the flavor.
Yeah.
No,
No?
I'll guarantee you that's the Fijian. Because remember we
Really?
talked about, and again, I want to clarify this and say that when we say oddity, it's not bad. It's wonderful. It's what makes it unique. It's just different. It's wonderfully odd. But that's definitely that South Pacific rum. So remember when he said this before we went to the break, is that one of the beautiful things about rum is that fingerprint of where it's made.
Yeah.
So that fingerprint, that oddity tasting,
that's
that's definitely
very-
that fingerprint.
It's
right
absolutely
there.
Fiji. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you noticed, but the sugar cane that we used that was ultimately made molasses, the sugar cane spent some time in the International Space Station. Yeah.
Wow. So
That's a true story I just made up.
Two
Far
ISS,
out, man.
Two ISS ready.
No, it's not. It's a
Far
joke.
out.
But I want to show the label if I can.
Yeah,
it's
because it's really one of the prettiest rum labels I've ever seen. Maybe you can give that a good close-up shot there.
I'm going to walk over here because I'm untethered.
Yes, you are Mr. Wireless Mike.
Listen, guys, I'm just like you. I put my pants on one leg at a time, except for when my pants are on. My mic is wireless.
Yes, I realize this. And if I didn't realize it, he would point it out to us again.
Five times.
Again.
5 times. So
that is a beautiful
the flavor
illustration on there.
It really is. It's a beautiful bottle. And I will say that when I had seen the bottle actually already in the store.
And as a matter of fact, if you put it up against his shirt, the bottle actually disappears.
it disappears.
Yeah. When the,
It's camera. There was a bottle of rum here a minute ago. What happened? Oh, there it is.
I didn't know they did smoking and toasting on a green screen.
So, but the thing about this label is there's definitely sort of this. I'm going to use this word wrong, but it's the closest word I can think of to describe it. It's like an onomatopoeia of the flavor. It looks like it tastes, or it tastes like it looks.
It tastes tropical.
It's tropical.
And,
It's luscious. It's vibrant. It's colorful. It tastes like that. And honestly, we didn't know what to make of it when we first heard about this. When Alexander was first describing it to us. But it's really fit in with the family very well. Yeah.
Well, I will say that rum in general as a spirit is one of the easiest to pair with cigars in my experience, but this pairs even more beautifully than some of the rums that I've tried. It's just really wonderful.
Mine's
with
broken.
A cigar. Yeah, I see you had a problem with your glass there.
Don't pour too much. We're about to go to the 2005 one.
Yes.
He's like, not a problem. I can handle it.
Yeah.
I'm
All
a
right. Well, I'll tell
professional.
you what. I'll finish the rest of mine if you want to pour some 2005.
Sure.
Oh, I didn't know we were going that fast. I would have held on.
We got a lot of rum to go
Well, there's
through.
only 5 segments of the show,
Right.
and we have beers, and this is now the single distillate. Is that
Do we
right?
want to do a beer first?
Let's go ahead and do this, and then we'll
Sounds
start
good.
with the beers in the next segment.
So this one is not in the United States yet. It
Okay.
will be probably mid-December.
So it looks similar to, it's a different shaped bottle, but the label is similar. It's different, but still similar colors and markings to the Isle of Fiji. But this one is different in what way from the regular Isle of Fiji?
Well, it's all going to be one batch. It's that vintage, I should say. It's all 2005 vintage. It's going to spend, I believe, 8 years in the barrel. Oh, no, longer than that. I'm sorry. It's 14 years in a bourbon barrel in Fiji, and then 1 year in the cognac cask in France. Now, also a notable difference in these is we have 16 grams per liter on the dosage on this one. So that's still not a lot when you're comparing it to the rest of the liquid in there. But this one's even less at only 4 grams, 4 grams per liter. So just a little teensy tiny bit.
So this is the regular bottle of Isle of Fiji, we were saying, is retailing for around $25, which to me is amazing that you can buy a rum that good for under $30.
That's amazing.
Right. What about this one? This is obviously going to be more expensive, right?
This will be in the neighborhood of 60.
That's still not prohibitive if you're well. whenever you're ready, Docs, I'm good to go for
One other notable
some
on
of
this is
2005.
100 proof, just north of 100 proof.
Okay.
So a little bit bigger on the proof. So it occurs to me as I'm sitting here that I don't actually own a shirt with a bird of paradise at all on it.
That could be what we would describe as a wardrobe malfunction.
That's right.
You may need a.
I'm feeling a little out of
shirt
place
with a
here.
bird of paradise
I
on
can
it.
fix that.
Yeah.
I can work on that.
All right. Well, this is.
L'chaim.
Cheers all around. So very different nose from the other one.
First thing, very different nose. Now, we did a feature 2009, I think it was, not about 2-3 years ago, and I described it as sort of this dry, sweet, dry sandwich. It's going to start off dry, it's going to sweeten up right in the middle of the tongue, and then it just almost dries up immediately.
Oh, no lie. There's a little chocolatiness to it.
There is.
Wow.
That is just spectacular.
And that little numbness in the middle of the tongue, a lot more mouthfeel.
There's
Yes.
almost a grapey kind of finish to the end of it, too.
I like that. That's true.
What did you say it spent time in?
14 years in bourbon cask in Fiji, and 1 year, at least 1 year, in the Ferran casks
Yeah.
in cognac, or what we call continental aging.
Now, obviously, the the climate is a lot different in Fiji, where it's resting in the bourbon barrels, than it is in France when it's in the cognac barrels. Does climate play a factor
Huge.
in the aging? And is that part of why part of it happens in Fiji and part of it in France?
I don't know if that's why. I think it's a fortuitous happenstance, if you will, but there's definitely a difference. The warmer the climate, especially when you have drastic changes in climate, as you're expanding and contracting that wood, for sure it's going to take on a lot more characteristics of the wood. And you don't get as much as that expansion and contraction in colder climates in Europe than you do, of course, in places like the Caribbean, or in this case, in the South Pacific. I got that.
Yeah,
time.
you got it. You did it. Tell me again when this will be available in
We're
the
looking
United
at
States?
mid-December.
Mid-December. So
This among, I'll go ahead and let the shot out of the bag. Shot. Let's see, I'm trying to do that in French. Can I do that in
Cat?
French? Shot and bag is sac. Something else. Shot sac. Okay. So,
I actually don't know what's happening anymore.
it's a multicultural show. That's the point of the whole thing.
oh my gosh, all my people in French are going, yeah, you screwed that up.
Yeah.
That among a bunch of all of our 2020 single casks will be released that month. Some will be in Houston, some will be in San Antonio, Austin. We also have a nice Jamaican vintage coming at that time. And no, I'm not going to tell you. Forget it. We'll talk offline.
All right. So I'll ask you this question. We got a glimpse at your library, if you will, of Plantation Rums. How many different expressions are generally available to retail at one time, like right now? I realize probably no store's carrying them all, but how many different Plantation Rums are out there right now?
Well, there is one store carrying them all. At least one. NASA Liquor out there in Clear Lake tries their best to carry everything available in our market.
Right.
One store
but Austin-
to carry them all.
I like it. I like it. Bruce Willis.
And then run this, bind them. You threw me off there with your Lord of the Rings reference there. There's a ton, but so many of them are very brief.
Right, they're only available
releases.
for a limited time.
Exactly. So, but that's the thing is Alexander and the guys in France, they just don't. And I should say, oh man, especially the guys in Barbados, they just don't stop. When they have an idea, that's one of the wonderful things I love working with Alexander. Is very rarely does he say not right now, or we can't even afford it. He's like, that's a great idea, I love it, let's do it. You know what I mean? They're not afraid to try new things. It's a creativity workshop, just 24/7. In fact, we as a salespeople say, oh my God, pump the brakes. Can we say something for 2022 and 2023? But I would say right now, if you really wanted to flex your wallet and do a little bit of traveling in Texas, you could get about 12 different labels of Plantation.
One of the things that makes you guys so different from other rums is this variety in your line. Most rums, even very, very good ones, have a tendency to be. The difference is simply the aging. It'll be essentially the same rum, but there may be different age expressions of it available. With you guys, it's it's
the
different
distillate's
origins,
different, everything,
different
yeah.
distillates, and it really makes it virtually impossible to keep up. But we're trying.
Yeah, I know
Worth
the
the
feeling.
challenge.
Yes, it's challenge accepted.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I'll say this: there's more than there used to be. We're not the only ones. There's other brands out there. Some are blenders, and some are just they purchase and bottle. Nothing wrong with that. They go out and seek nice rums. But you know that is something that we benefit from is the diversity of the terroir of rum, and so yeah, we do enjoy that, and we do get to play around, and it is really one of the biggest key factors in making each one of those labels different from the last one. And I think we do a very good job of making each label different from the last one. We really like to repeat ourselves.
Does Plantation sell any of your distillate to rum blenders who will then blend it with other things and come up with a blend of their own?
Short answer, no, but that's because there is no Plantation distillery per se. We
Right,
do own West Indies Rum Distillery in Barbados, but that's not the Plantation Distillery. Plantation is one of our rums that we make there at the West Indies Rum Distillery. But we also make some Plantation at our facility in Jamaica, which we are partners with NRJ. It's National Rums of Jamaica, the Jamaican government, and also Demerara Distillers, that we own Clarendon and Long Pond Distillery out there. So there are rums being made at those facilities that are not Plantation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense, yes. But what's amazing, as we said, is just how many different expressions, how different they all are from each other. Wait, I'm getting a call from a telemarketer.
That was not me.
Let's decline that. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Your vehicle warranty is about to expire.
Oh, you know, it's the
Hey, they want to buy your house.
the damnedest thing.
Who are you voting for? I don't know.
That's right. Yeah, it doesn't matter which party you're registered with. You've been getting a lot of texts lately. They want to make sure you're headed to the polls, don't they?
I just reply no to all of them. Can we count on your vote? No.
One of them asked me what my biggest concern was right now. They listed a bunch of things, and my answer was unsolicited texts.
I love it. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's beer time. And what are we going to delve into next in the world of Plantation Rum, Docs?
Well, we're going to go to one of my favorites that's still available, and we brought it up just because I was showing it to someone in Dallas the other day, and I'd forgotten. I got so many kids, I forgot to spend time with this one, so I want to go and jump into that one.
All right, fair enough. We'll get to that next. Plus, Saul Fruitman, a hazy IPA from New Mexico. It's all coming up next on Smoking and Toasting. Welcome back at Smoking and Toasting. We had to move the camera a little bit because we were getting some raindrops on the old iPad, and we are ready to taste some beer. So Ian's giving us our au naturel sound effect, and we'll be pouring some of the Saul Fruitman. While he does that, UK regulators fined Heineken's pub business nearly $2.6 million for allegedly forcing British bars to sell unreasonable levels of Heineken beers. Heineken owns Star Pubs and Bars. They operate pub leases.
Have they been taking workshop notes from AB InBev?
Apparently so. Yeah, there's like, if it works for the Bud guys, we'll try it ourselves. They actually own a company that does bar and pub leases, and they are forcing their lessees to seriously and repeatedly, apparently, in violation of UK rules, over a nearly 3-year period. They've been keeping an iron grip on the pub owners who tried to exercise their right to serve products from different brewers and are being rejected by Star.
Because that's what owning a pub isn't difficult enough.
Yeah.
You know,
These days.
at all.
Yeah.
So you really need to
You
have
need somebody to limit what you can sell at your pub.
to have someone come try and strong arm you into something else.
Well, I know the UK pub scene is much different than it is here in the United States, but the American craft style beers, including some American craft beers that are being imported to the UK, are really finding a foothold right now all across Europe. And, I told you I watched that whole documentary about how Stone tried to open a brewery in Europe. It didn't work out so well, but there's been others that have, and there's there's a big craft movement happening in Europe, especially in the UK right now.
There's a bit of resistance, I think, across the board because you remember the old adage where it used to be that that you can only get good beer in Europe and Germany and that kind of stuff, and the American craft beer movement has blown that out of the water. And I want to put a couple cases in point where the Guinness Brewery put out an American blonde ale that was good. Outstanding. Like
And
when
they
you got
an American brewery to do it.
Guinness doesn't have to put out stuff like that, but they do because, keep up with the times. And I find that to be quite admirable, especially with a very established company as that. I mean, they've been around since I don't even know what the year is, but it's forever.
I think it says it on a can of a bottle of Guinness.
Right.
Established in forever ago.
Yeah, the year, 2 BC or something, but the bottom line is the United States craft beer movement has changed beer across the entire world.
It really has,
and shown that you can do all these things and be successful, and also pushing flavors because I think a lot of the breweries in Europe were still doing, even though they were doing styles that we didn't generally do here that were new to us when craft brews started doing it, they were still being very traditional about it. And now the American craft beer industry has forced those breweries to break out of their mold a bit.
And to explore and try new things. It's really been an interesting thing. Well, shame on you, Heineken. And by the way, just in case no one's told you, you really need to change your glass bottles.
Yeah, that whole green bottle thing.
Green to brown.
That's
green
no
isn't
bueno,
working.
as they say.
So here's a can of a very interesting thing. They're definitely paying homage to the TV show Better Call Saul, which I won't spend a lot of time on this, but after the most recent season of Better Call Saul, I began to read a number of articles from critics who are now beginning to discuss amongst themselves as to whether it has actually surpassed its series that it spun off from, Breaking Bad, in terms of its level of excellence.
Yes.
I would almost argue that it has. As much as I loved Breaking Bad.
It has. And this is, and we, you know what? I know you said we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but no, we are.
We're at Doc's house, so.
I would say this, is that we're breaking Brad.
Breaking Brad?
God,
that's
a
in a
porn
different
version.
that's in a different section. That's behind the door.
Oh, man, nice.
So, as opposed to Breaking Bad, I think that Better Call Saul has all the intrigue and what's going to happen next. But at the same time, though, you just don't feel so disgusting afterwards.
Right.
So much of Breaking Bad, you're just like, oh.
It was hard to root for Walter White, even though you kind of wanted to and kind of did a little, but you felt bad about it.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the same way. Well, Better Call Saul was originally going to be. It was originally proposed as more of a comedy, not a laugh track type comedy, but one of those kind of dark comedies in the Fargo sort of style, and it really has developed into its own intriguing. I don't even know what you call the genre of show that Breaking Bad is, but it's veered that direction, and I don't know. I think they've done an excellent job. I really do think it's the best show on television currently. If you can call it current when there's this long of a wait between seasons. But
all right, I'm going to drop this bomb.
You
haven't watched any of them.
Yeah, I will say this: my wife had never watched Breaking Bad. I've since gone back and rewatched the whole thing with her, but she started watching Better Call Saul with me when the series began, and she didn't have to have the background of Breaking Bad to understand what was going on and enjoy Better Call Saul. So you could start there if you wanted, and I would recommend that you do. It's just fantastic. I know you're not a big TV guy, but when you do watch TV, watch something excellent, and that show's excellent. In honor of Better Call Saul, we have the Saul Fruitman Hazy IPA from New Mexico, and I don't know if you've taken an early taste there, Ian.
I have.
I find that often while I'm talking about the beer, you're drinking the beer, which makes you the smarter of the two of us, but what are you getting so far?
Realistically, thin and bitter.
Really?
That's what I think. I don't think the flavor's bad, but I wouldn't go out of my way for this.
My first thought was IPA, a fruity IPA. It's like just an IPA that just they added some fruit to.
And now, see, I like it. I think it's not as thick as a lot of the hazies. It's got a thinner mouthfeel to it, but I find it pretty appetizing. I think it's.
Yeah, see that I think
Does
that would be a
some
difference in our palates. I don't think I'd go back to that.
It does some very interesting things on the palate. A lot of which is citrus based, but it's very I don't know. It's very interesting. It's not a one dimensional citrus. It's got it's very much very orange juicy to me, but it's deeper than that.
I think you said it's not a one-dimensional citrus. I think it's kind of a one-dimensional citrus slap, though. This is not a very interesting. It's not balanced to me at all. There's nothing in the front end of the flavor whatsoever.
Yeah, the front is
the
not
middle of it
strong.
is thin and watery. The end of it has a lot of lemon, like a ton of lemon, just in the aftertaste overall. And it doesn't taste to me like fresh lemon. It tastes like that squeezed out of the lemon-shaped bottle lemon to me.
I think you know
Says
it.
the guy who liked the Bud Light lime with the lemon floor cleaner.
Well, it had more flavor than everything else that we tried that day.
Below the belt. Wow.
It did. I was just disappointed that the flavor was lemon
Let me
pledge.
set this up. He says the guy that liked it. Okay, this is not the situation.
Just
right?
because we
This
made
is-
out doesn't mean I liked her.
we didn't look each other in the eye or anything, but no, no. But the situation was different. See, we had all these light beers.
Right.
It was a whole light beer blind taste test, and we're trying to figure out which ones tasted better than the others. And frankly, the one with flavor was the Bud Light lime, and we all thought it was lemon pledge, but at least it had something going on.
I don't know.
Compared to all the other ones, which were just watery and thin and weird.
I'll go for tasteless before I go with furniture cleaner.
Well, furniture cleaner at least is flavor. You know, at least that's a flavor.
Well,
That's like prison mentality, though.
well, I will tell you.
Well, I was stuck in a room. I was locked in a room with all these light beers.
We forced him to drink beer at Doc's. It was terrible.
I think you nailed this. And to me, it's very orange juicy, and that's not what I expected. I mean, I don't have a problem with the fruity IPA, but on the label, I'm seeing mango and pineapple. I'm not getting a ton of mango.
Not getting a ton of mango. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's definitely more orange juice forward. There's some other citrusy flavors in there. I like it. I found it pretty appealing to the palate. In fact, I want more. So maybe Ian, you can pour me a little more of that while Doc sets us up for our next rum selection. Where are we headed next, sir?
We're going to Peru.
Peru.
Join us.
Gay Peru.
Saludos, amigos. We're going to Peru.
There?
Are we going here?
Yes.
All right. Pass it
So
over.
this is the Peru 2010. This one is still currently available in your better retailers in the Texas market. This one is going to be aged 7 years in bourbon cask in Peru, obviously. 1 year in the Ferran cask, and then an additional year in our Pinot de Charon casks. Now, I'm going to put this bottle down while I pour, and then I'll explain what that is.
Okay. Now, while you're pouring, I'll just mention you're in 3 different kinds of casks with this, and so we kind of get a sense of what the original cask will do to it. And I believe the next cask you said was the cognac cask. Is that right? So the third one, what is the difference and what that will impart that might not have been there in the last things that we tried?
So that's a deep question with an even deeper answer. So what this is, it's part of a series we do every year called the single cask, which is kind of misleading because it's not just one cask. It spends its life in 3 different casks. So,
right. I did see that said single
I
cask
think
collection.
it's single cask in the sense is about 1 cask worth is about what hits the market actually. It's a very limited production.
Okay.
So. As I said before, this one has the Pinot de Charon finish on it, and the Pinot de Charon is a dessert wine. It's actually made with cognac. We take the unfermented juice of the grapes that we use to make the wine that we will distill into cognac, and add that with cognac and put it into a barrel, a cognac barrel, and let that rest longer. And the end result is a 17% dessert wine called Pinot de Charon. Now, it's very, very sweet, this Pinot de Charon, but in my opinion, it doesn't really sweeten up this rum very much. Now, before I go into the whole third cask thing, have you tried a chance to taste it yet?
Not yet.
Well, then you know what? Then I'll put the pause button on that, and I'll just keep talking. So, we, on all of our single casks, we take it a step further than just the tropical aging in bourbon casks and the continental aging in the cognac casks. We take it a third, a tertiary maturation, if you will, of some kind of cask that's going to take that flavor further, if not in yet a unexpected direction. In this case, it's the Pinot de Chiron barrel. We've used Teeling Irish whiskey casks. We've used Tequila Ocho casks. We're going to try one of those later. Just things that you wouldn't expect, and it's just to take that rum into a different level.
This has a fruitiness that I wasn't expecting.
So I do think it's fruity, but the first thing on this one that I get is earthiness. There's a real earthiness to this rum, but it's not terribly sweet. Not as you would expect, especially with that Pinot de Chiron.
No, and it's got a bit of a drier finish and a little more of the rum hug, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And it also has a little more of that sort of deeper wood vibe to it that you get from a lot of rums that may be very good but aren't necessarily as, I'm going to use the word experimental, that aren't trying as many different things, that aren't coming from as many different locations as Plantation. This one has a little more of that traditional aged rum flavor to
This
me.
one has a little bit of a warmer flavor rather than a brighter flavor, I would say, too. It's very much
It's a better way to say it.
Yeah, and it's got a butteriness to it that kind of lingers after you take a sip.
That grapiness,
Extremely
that
smooth.
slight grapiness that you said you have from that one, I get a lot of grapiness in this one.
Yeah. And this one you said is still available?
Still available. It's about $55-$60 a bottle. I know you can definitely find it out there at Nassau Liquor. I think the Flax right around the corner has it. Rice Liquors in Bel Air, I believe, that has this one. Ryan's Liquor up on the north side, and of course the Austin Shaker in the Austin area carries just about everything we have.
This is a very, very good rum.
Wiki Brian is feeling snarky today since he hasn't been on the
I'm not surprised.
hasn't been on the show for a while, and his comment was to my previous conversation about the Bud Light Lime. He says, "Poop has more flavor than rice cakes." Just saying.
I think that's a prison thing also.
I think that's is this back to Breaking Brad? I don't know.
Breaking Bread.
Could be.
So, but on this one, though, there's probably, I don't know, there's maybe about 6 cases left in the state. And when it's gone, it's gone.
All right. We have 2 more beers to try. How many more rums? 3 more?
Well, we have 3 we can try if we got time. Yeah.
All right. I tell you what. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We're going to try some, and I don't know how this will work with rum, but we're going to try some Imperial Pumpkin Porter from Brazos Valley Brewing. So we'll see how that works out. And by the way, just as a note, because I started my initial cigar so early, and it was a fairly small one, I've smoked that one down now, so I've lit one of my old standbys. I always try to have a few of these in the humidor if I can. This is the Enclave Broadleaf from AJ Fernandez, which I actually bought my first box of, Ian, when you and I met AJ at Stogie's several years ago. When this first came out, he was there promoting it, and bought the first box, and I was pretty much hooked immediately. These are one of my absolute
That's got such
favorites.
a beautiful, look at the color on that cigar. Such a beautiful and oily Maduro wrapper that's just...
And I will say, this cigar, not only is it one of my favorites, but it has by far the best pre-light aroma and pre-light draw of any cigar I've ever tried. It's just, when you first, pull it out of the cellophane and smell it, when you punch it and take that first dry draw through it, it's so rich, and it just makes it makes where you can't wait to get it lit and smoke it.
This Mil Diaz that I've been smoking this entire time has such a wonderful, rich nuttiness to it overall. It still has a little of that campfire, but pepper spice backing up everything, which, by the way, goes deliciously with every rum we've had so far.
Yeah.
And doesn't seem to interrupt the flavor of the rums.
No,
I feel like
which is nice. Again, rums and cigars seem to pair so well.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
It's a much
fish in a bucket kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to say it's much less singular matchup oriented than, say, a bourbon or a Scotch will be, where certain ones will work with certain cigars much better. I find that I can almost just pull anything out of my bar from a rum standpoint if I'm smoking a cigar, and it will work.
Although, if you have a collection of rum, the whiskey sniff works on rum too.
Yes, it does, and it's a very enjoyable thing to do. By the way. All right, we'll be right back. Some pumpkin porter and more plantation rum. It's Smoking and Toasting, show number 208. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 208. We are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com, where you can get great shirts for cigar lovers. But I don't think there's anything at MyCigarShirts.com like the gift that Ian just received from Docs and his wife. That is a shirt with a real-life bird of paradise.
Let me get this up here.
2009 Plantation Tiki shirt.
Look how awesome that is.
That's fantastic. Can
Well, it's got the
on your website.
2019. No.
The Plantation logo on
just
it.
Just things for us and our friends. Yeah.
Speaking of the Plantation logo, I will say, I live in a high-rise building. So when the rum arrived, when I got the Isle of Fiji rum that Doc said the guys from Plantation send over, I was down. I have to go downstairs to the front desk to pick up packages when they arrive. So I go downstairs. I'm riding up in the elevator, and I'm looking. My wife had gotten a couple of packages, and I'm looking at this one. And I'm like, I love this box. It was decorated the same way as Doc's shirt, same way as the label. I love this box. It's so pretty. And then I looked, and in the bottom corner of the box, there was a wooden barrel, and I could see on the barrel that logo, that triple totem logo from Plantation Rum. And I was like, "Oh!" Then I started to get excited. So I brought it upstairs, and I was opening it up, found what was inside, which was the bottle, and I gave the box to my wife to dispose of. And she starts to tell me it's addressed to smoking, and I'm like, I don't want to know that. Don't want to know that. Don't want to know that. Let's just pretend it came addressed to me personally. If it's addressed to smoking and toasting. Long story short, it didn't matter because I did that.
I feel like,
but I did buy another one, which is destined to make its way to the show. Except today we're drinking Doxus. Does any of that absolve me in any way?
No.
Okay.
Makes you a bad person.
Makes me a bad.
I still like you though.
All right. Well, that's good.
It's kind of like liking the guy from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I don't really want to like you, but I kind of do.
I am the Walter White in this situation. So remember, when it comes to Plantation Rum, I am the one who knocks.
Docs, you have thoughts on this?
Yeah. It smells and kind of tastes like the Halloween section at Hobby Lobby.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
But I like it, though.
But you like the Halloween section at Hobby Lobby.
It's Halloween potpourri.
Well, it's interesting. This is an Imperial pumpkin porter from Brazos Valley.
So I like the beeriness of this. It actually does taste like beer, and sometimes when you get pumpkin beers, they don't. They taste like some bakery experiment that went horribly wrong and got poured into a can.
You're right. You taste the baking spice, and that's what
some of
makes
them are
it
really
pumpkin.
good. I actually really kind of like this. I think you're right, though. It does have a little of that pumpkin potpourri.
I do like it. But that's the first. That's where my brain went automatically.
All right,
but,
so that potpourri taste is definitely on the front. The finish though is
this is a good beer.
pie.
So I hopefully the potpourri thing isn't like a terrible.
Yeah, I almost potpourri.
diss.
That's like saying it's like dried flowers. It's not at all. It's very pumpkiny. It's very Halloween. It's very fallish. It's very fallish.
Well,
so it's
that's kind of important.
The pumpkin in here is obvious, but it's not brutal. It also has a lot of those the fall, the baking spices and like the little pumpkin cookies almost, like those. It has that kind of thing to it, and this is a delightful pumpkin beer. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm pretty.
By the way,
pleased with it.
I'm going to tell you right now, the best pumpkin beer I've had this year is Harpoons. Harpoons pumpkin beer is outstandingly good.
This is not the Dunkin' Donuts Harpoon fall beer, is it? This is an actual pumpkin ale.
This is pumpkin ale.
We'll find it. I've got a number of pumpkin beers standing by for our shows.
We had at the Brew Club. We had a taste test with the different pumpkin
beers. Yeah,
and
we've done that the last 2 years on Smoking and Toasting.
We were laughing about that because one of the guys who was trying the beers with me was Jeff, who was on the show with us last year when we did all the pumpkin beers. He absolutely had a blast. He he announced to everybody there, he goes, if he ever invites you onto the show,
go.
You definitely want to go. He had a great time.
At one time or another, we should probably have everyone from your drinking club.
No, that would be a bad idea, but yeah, it's a good idea at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's when we invite Ian's friends on the show that things happen, like they'll get bored while we're talking about something that doesn't particularly interest them and just decide to shotgun a beer in the background on the camera. That's the type of thing that has a tendency to happen. I like this. This is called Cherub Rock, which obviously is a nod to the Smashing Pumpkins, and there's a really big pumpkin on the can. So you kind of get where they're coming from. But it is very pumpkin-y, and I think kind of puts me in that fall mood, which is not easy to do when you're sitting here with
in this balmy 86-degree weather. It doesn't feel...
big cumulus clouds in the sky and looking at the water, and it feels like midsummer.
I want to point something out about that though, because a month ago at this time, it was 98 to 101.
Oh no, this is comfortable.
This is actually fall weather.
This is wonderful, and this is the right time, Docs, for you to be out here. And if I were you, I'd be out here pretty much every day.
These fans are very
well, okay. So, and on that note, I want to give a props to my wife. Props. Do the kids still say props?
Yeah, street cred.
The kids still say
cred.
props.
I was going to say shout out, but I think they've moved on.
I
from
think shout out.
too. Yeah.
So this is my wife, Suzanne, and we call her Zany. This is Zany's area, and she works her butt off to keep it a cozy area and a fun place to hang out. And it's our time of year. We have the fire pit over there. The lighting is beautiful at night. She does work very hard to make it a very cozy place to hang out, especially once the weather starts to get cooler.
I saw that when I walked out earlier. The fire pit looks like a great place to sit around. And
that is actually that fire pit is modeled after our fire pit in France at Bonbonnet, at Chateau Bonbonnet. The one time I brought Suzanne with me, she loved it so much she had to have one. So now I know that sounds like, oh, it was in France and I had to have it. No, it's still a Home Depot model there, but it just looks a lot like the one we had.
No, it's great though. It looks awesome.
And since you are, what did you call this? The Paris of
Fort Bend County.
Fort Bend County, yeah. So that makes sense. It all fits right in.
And sometime when it cools down, the gentlemen will have to come back over and we'll explore a little bit more rum.
When it cools down, we call that winter.
Yeah, right. And don't blink or you'll miss it.
Then it'll be in the 60s.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll burn stuff and we'll drink.
So what are we trying next from a rum standpoint there, Mr. Dupsakis?
I was going to go. I got to put my mic there. I was going to go in the weird direction. No, not weird, but interesting direction of the Guyana 1998, which is finished in tequila ocho casks. But I think that with that last flavor profile, I think going to St. Lucia would be better.
Okay, St. Lucia.
Can you hand me that bottle right there, the first one closest to you? Thank you, my friend.
Yes,
so this is the St. Lucia 2010. This is an exclusive that we sell only at our chateau in France. I don't even know if we have any left.
Is it me, or is that a much darker colored liquid than some of the other rums that we've tried here? Definitely darker than the Isle of Fiji.
It is darker. You are correct, sir.
Okay.
I can confirm that at this time, Senator. It is darker.
I will neither confirm nor deny.
None of which says anything about
it. Has a reddish, kind of a ruby reddish kind of.
Yeah, that's what I was getting
look
at.
Going to it that the other ones don't have.
And this is St. Lucia. Now, are there things that you would sort of automatically expect from a St. Lucia distillate? In other words, is it something? Is there a sort of an overriding characteristic that St. Lucia rums would have?
I think St. Lucia rum, which is delicious rum. This is not the only St. Lucia we put out. We put out a vintage not too long ago. I don't know when we're going to do another one again, though. But St. Lucia has a little bit of rancio to it. And again, you want to go to that word funk, but that's reserved for the Jamaicans. It's got this unique quality about it.
What was the word you used?
Rancio.
Rancio.
Yeah. It's
we call it overripe when we talk about beer.
Okay.
You can get right on the nose there. It almost reminds you of like this fortified wine that maybe stayed out one day too long, but it's just delicious. It's still delicious.
Well, and that's the thing. We talk about those flavors in beer a lot. We go, it's got like an overripe banana flavor to it. That doesn't necessarily sound like it would be appetizing, but in the right beer, it really is.
So I'm going to use another one of those terms that sounds a little weird until you're drinking a bunch of rum and kind of get it. It has a slight rubberiness to the flavor. And I really enjoy that in rum. I like that. It's a weird flavor. It's an odd flavor.
I think rubberiness is a good word.
Rubberiness is a good thing.
And a lot of Jamaican rums have that that sort of rubberiness to the flavor as well. What interests me about this
the
one,
Jamaican rums, I think, have a little more that Funky's talking about.
Well, we're allowed to call it funk if it's Jamaican, right?
No, it's not that you're not allowed to. I feel like that's like, it's. I think when we say the word funk, our mind automatically goes to those mid to high ester level Jamaican rums.
Right.
And I don't want to do a disservice to the St. Lucia rums of saying it's the same thing. And that's an insult to either St. Lucia or Jamaica. And they're just very different. And I think you hit it around the head with that rubberiness. And I say that not in a bad way. It's not at all.
It's not an unpleasant taste. Yeah,
it's
at
wonderful.
all. Yeah.
So this particular one, it is a single cask offering from us, which means it has been triple aged. Not only 7.5 years in the bourbon cask, 1 year in the Ferran cask, and an extra 6 months in our Ferran Renegade barrel casks. Now, if you remember, Renegade barrel number 2, which was chestnut. Aged cognac, which we couldn't even call cognac because you have to use oak of some kind. So this
in order for it to actually be called a cognac.
I think about this on the show.
I think so. Yes,
and we actually call it the Eau de Vie de Vin, made with Ferran cognac. So we use those barrels, and we call them zebra cast because there's a lot of light and dark wood in there.
I remember you mentioning that before on the show, actually.
So yes, I think some of our Renegade, our zebra casks are some of Alexander's most prized possessions, and we're using that more and more for some aging with the rums. Because they're the reason why they're zebra casks is these are casks that have been torn down and rebuilt, removing staves and putting new ones in to maintain the integrity of the barrel where it is still producing good flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to screw this word up, and it's one of the hardest words in French, and it's redouage. That's horrible. But it's the practice of maintaining a barrel by taking the spirit out at some point and replacing 2, 3, 4 staves, and then basically putting the barrel back together and then putting the spirit back in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I will say that this has, of the different rums we've had today, this has the most pronounced and most interesting retrohale, flavor on the retrohale of anything that we've had so far here today. It's extremely pleasant, and it just kind of brings you back to one another sip.
The retrohale to me has a bit of earthiness to it. You mentioned earthiness in the last one. This has a higher degree of that, but it also has. It's interesting because it's right before the very finish of this, that grapiness kind of hits you, and then it gets interrupted by this big warm flavors and the spirit hug that you get from it, which is super pleasant, super nice.
Guys, do we want to try one more rum in this segment, or do we want to do 2 rums and a beer and drinking news all in segment number 5?
We can do this quick.
Okay, let's do another one here.
That's pretty stacked.
Cool.
Yeah.
So can you hear me? The second bottle right there. This is the one next we're going to try now. Is the Guyana 1998, and this one did not make it to Texas. If you have a friend in the Chicago or New York area, you can try and get it. I'm going to put this bottle down real quick.
A friend in the Chicago area, you can try and get him to send it to you.
Yeah,
or
or maybe you're in the Chicago area. This one's mine, I think.
Are you
that
sure?
that one's yours.
We do have a pandemic going on.
I just
here.
brought this one over from the side, and I polished off what was inside it. So
We are pandemically challenged.
yeah, so the one in the middle is yours there, Doc.
So this one is also a single cask, but the third maturation on this is going to be Tequila Ocho casks.
Now that's really interesting because that's a pretty unusual thing to finish a rum in, isn't it? Is it
that
tequila
was the
cask?
whole point of it. Now, Tomas Estes, I should say, is a friend of Alexander's and a very sweet gentleman who makes Tequila Ocho.
Which is a very nice tequila.
And you know what's wonderful? And the thing is, they're part of our barrel exchange program, where he actually used some of our barrels for his products, and they didn't come to the United States. And when I got actually, this next one we're going to try, I bought it in Maison du Whisky in Paris. They had 3 different Ocho expressions, 2 aged in, I think, in Ferran cask and 1 in Plantation cask. And I couldn't bring it home with me because I was already lugging home too many bottles of our stuff.
Right.
I simply just had any room for it,
There's a hint of pepperiness in the end of this that, again, you
wonder if that comes from the tequila barrel.
Yeah, you would never expect that in a rum.
Uh-huh.
In general, and there's a hint of that pepperiness, and then there's a sweetness that happens at the very end, and then in the retrohale that really it ties the whole rum together.
I really like this, but it is, I would say, the least rum-like of any of the rums that we've tried today.
I agree, and I think it's that first sip is that mustiness of a cellar. And then on the finish, you get that vegetal quality of a nice reposado tequila. And I think that's my favorite.
The word. Vegetal is very good right there. I like that.
It's really delicious, though. Like but it almost feels like it's an entirely new spirit all its own.
It is, and I'll be perfectly honest. I don't think every rum lover, or even that from a plantation lover, was huge on this one. I don't know. I loved it just because it was so different, and it's a delicious product. But I think if people do want to get that, I do believe Astor Wines in New York still have this, and they have a website. And I think Benning's in Chicago has it. So if you have a friend in Chicago or New York, you can still get this one.
It really is something that you should try. It's particularly if you're a real lover of rum and you like, trying all of the different kinds and expressions. This is one
you have a curious palate.
You shouldn't miss. Yeah,
I will tell you, when we started this show, my knowledge of rum was absolutely abysmal, absolute minimal. I just wasn't a rum drinker at all. My dad loved rum.
Mm-hmm.
My dad loved rum to the point where it didn't matter if it was good rum or bad rum.
Right. It's just the old drunken sailor song comes to mind.
My dad just loved rum, and consequently there was some bad rum, and I'd sit down and have a drink with Dad. He'd go, "Here, try this," and
Right. Well, yeah. There is such a thing as bad rum.
But that being said, since we started doing this show, I've been introduced to rum in a whole new light, and I'm becoming a fan. Like, I find myself at the house, and 5 years ago this wouldn't have been me, but I find myself at the house sometimes going, "Ooh, I want that rum," because I have actually a nice little selection of rum, and good ones to go there and try and have.
Docs, with a selection that's as large as yours, what are you choosing most often right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
Well, right now I'm drinking the Guyana 98.
No, but I'm saying.
What am I going to the most? What I'm
what's
drinking?
your go-to right now?
I've been drinking a lot of the Isle of Fiji.
Yeah.
A lot of the Isle of Fiji. It also depends on what part of the evening you're in.
Yeah.
I was drinking some of original St. Lucia vintage. I think it was 2005. We had some friends over when it got cool last weekend. We hung out and burned a fire, and I started out with some St. Lucia and some Isle of Fiji, and ended up drinking the pineapple, your wife's favorite, the Stiggins Fancy Pineapple.
Yep, love it. It's just so good.
I tell people about the pineapple rum, and a lot of times it's funny because you think pineapple rum and you think it's going to be this, like they do with the vodkas a lot of times, how they infuse the flavors,
it's
and it
not
gets
like
kind
that
of obnoxious or perfumey
it's
sometimes.
It's not like that at all.
It's not. It's absolutely amazing, and it's easy to drink by itself. It mixes incredibly well. It's great rum.
It's not like Fireball mixing cinnamon with the with the whiskey. But it's the reason is because it's not pineapple infused. It's aged in barrels that have pineapple staves.
Distilled.
Right?
It's distilled with pineapple. We distill our 3-star rum with the actual skin of what's called Victorian pineapples. Very small, very sweet, very flavorful pineapples. And then we do infuse the. We let the meat of the pineapple sit in our original dark rum, and then we take that distillation of the skins and the 3-star. Merge that with the original dark and put it back into the cognac barrel and let it age at least 6 more months. And a lot of work is into it.
And the original dark is just a terrific product to begin with. And when you add that pineapple to it, it just really creates it's a unique thing. I remember my wife was the first one to discover it. She'd gone out someplace with a friend, and the bartender recommended it. She told him she liked rum. The bartender recommended it, and she came home saying, "We have to get this." And that was how we got started on basically keeping the plantation Texas sales figures at an all-time high, I believe, because of that. Because
You're working on that with the Fiji now.
Well, I was about to say, and I was going to save this for the end of the show, but Docs, the Isle of Fiji at its price point, and with it being as delicious and drinkable as it is, it's now become. We've got a lot of rums at our house, but Isle of Fiji and the pineapple are now the rums that we will always have in our bar. There will always be a bottle of that in our bar. When it runs out, we'll get another one. That's a pretty remarkable thing when you consider, quite frankly, how overflowing our bar is.
I was going to say your bar is probably not too much smaller than mine.
We're running out of room, to be completely honest. In fact, every now and then I'll say to my wife, "What should I drink tonight?" And she'll say, "Something that's almost empty."
Yeah, so talk for a second about home bar management. I've been going through that too. If it's a third of a bottle, that's kind of making my decisions.
That's kind of yeah. That's better than the whiskey sniff when it comes to
infinity bottles, guys. Infinity bottles. In that room over there, I have an infinity bottle for cognac, an infinity bottle for rum, an infinity bottle for bourbon, and an infinity bottle for scotch. And when a bottle gets that low, I got my own blend going.
I love it. All right. So the mowers have come out. We're going to take a quick break and come back with our final segment. In the final segment, for those of you who have stuck around, drinking news. And drinking news is not pineapple, is pumpkin based today, which fits in perfectly. We'll be trying one more flavor of rum. What is that last one?
We're going to do the Cuba 2003.
Oh, the Cuba. All right, so this will be interesting. And we're going to try a very, very special bottle of Lone Pint. It is the Tornado Shark BA, which is the 7th anniversary Lone Pint.
That looks
awesome.
So
we'll be back with more of this and more of that. It's Smoking and Toasting. Hang on, segment 5 is coming. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, episode number 208. We're live at Greg Doxakis' domicile, the Paris of Fort Bend County. We're live at Doxneyland, and we're brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com, because cigars. And now, my friends, it's time for Drinking News.
Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm had a gator for a pet. Sorry, I'm working on this.
You're doing it on GarageBand. You're doing good so
He
far.
never had one lesson.
I asked him about his absent arm. He said, "Well, I tried to take my gator to the vet." Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Cheers, y'all.
So I'll point out that Ian wasn't able to bring the ukulele today, and so he just performed the Drinking News theme song on GarageBand on my iPhone, which I think, all things considered, turned out pretty good.
Well, I've never played GarageBand before.
Yeah.
I knew it existed. One of my students showed me.
After a drink, we'll consider a few more things and then talk about it.
Well, and then, and then I show up here at Doc's house, and he has all this rum and everything. I'm like, "Where's your ukulele?" And
Yeah,
no, it's totally my fault. The ukulele is sitting on my table where I can't forget it.
It's in the shop.
Yeah.
My bad.
It's in the shop. I'm the guy that fixes that stuff, though. That's the problem.
Here's why I felt it was so important to have the Drinking News theme song today. Because our Drinking News story starts out by saying, "A Florida man."
I love that.
That is the first line.
I'm glad I chose that verse today.
A Florida man is accused of striking his girlfriend with a pumpkin and its innards during a 2 a.m. confrontation last week at the couple's apartment, police report. Now, let me just say before we go any further.
He was smashing pumpkins?
Yes, he was. Let me just say before we go any further, we are not laughing at the concept of domestic abuse. What we're laughing at is a guy who thought a pumpkin would make his point. That's it. According to a criminal complaint, Nathan Garisto, and by the way, if you're watching the YouTube version of this, Adam will have inserted a photo of Nathan holding up a bottle of Tito's vodka and what looks like maybe a Captain Morgan in the other hand. with a big grin on his face.
Two fisting it.
Yes.
Two great tastes that taste great together.
Nathan
I don't
Garisto
know.
was arrested earlier this week on a domestic battery charge. He's free on a $1,000 bond, and he's been ordered to have no contact with his 29-year-old pumpkin-covered victim. Police say that when they responded to the couple's Largo residence, the victim was, quote, covered in pumpkin seeds and pulp, end quote. Garisto, cops noted, was heavily intoxicated while engaged in a verbal argument with his girlfriend. After refusing his girlfriend's request to leave the home, Garisto allegedly threw a pumpkin and all of the insides at her, the complaint alleges. When questioned by police, he only claimed that he threw the pumpkin at the sliding glass door.
He said, that ain't
And
true.
not at the
I cleaned it out first.
He's pled not guilty to the misdemeanor count. A judge ordered him to wear an alcohol monitor as part of his bond conditions. Apparently, his rap sheet also includes convictions for drunk driving, marijuana possession, careless driving, and probation violation.
As they say here in Texas, not his first rodeo.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily a hilarious drinking news story, but the fact that it began with a Florida man.
Well, it began with a
and
Florida man.
And included
you have the
him throwing
elements here.
pumpkins.
Someone got attacked with a pumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with a Florida man, which is absolutely brilliant.
One of my favorite episodes ever of the David Letterman show was when he launched pumpkins from the top of his building and
Pumpkins and watermelons.
yeah,
and
yeah,
a
he's done it with
piano.
all kinds of things, but pumpkins was just about my favorite. Watching them splatter on the New York City street below, something about that just appeals to my inner junior high schooler. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, there's your drinking news. By the way, we remind you, of course, that drinking news is often but not necessarily about drinking itself. And speaking of drinking, Ian, I am incredibly curious as to what you are going to think about this beer.
I'm pretty sure that when we had Tornado Shark before, we loved it.
Mm-hmm. And this Tornado Shark, and you can read this off of the label there so that I get it right, but it has been aged in applewood barrels. Is that right? Tell me exactly what it says.
Let's see.
Get your hands full.
Oh.
Thank you.
American Strong Ale aged in apple brandy barrels.
It's a
7th anniversary limited release ale, 6.3% by volume.
Now, this is where I would normally say that based on our experience, Lone Pint Brewery can do no wrong. However, we discovered that they actually can, because when we had their brewmaster on, he served us one. He brought all the beer in crowlers, and served us one that we were kind of like.
He didn't bring the Yellow Rose.
No, he didn't bring the Yellow Rose, which is quite frankly one of the greatest IPAs ever brewed. So he comes on the show. We've tried several beers; they're all fantastic, and then he pours us this other one, and Ian and I are both kind of looking at each other like, eh. And we're a little bit underwhelmed because everything we've tried from these guys has been terrific. And he said something like, "So what do you think?" And we were trying to be nice and said, "Well, I don't think we like this as much as the other things we've tried," or something like that. And he's like, "Yeah, this one isn't very good at all.
It's kind of bad."
Yeah, he brought it to I think to test us, just to see if we would kiss his ass because he brought us an interesting but not so great beer. This one, however,
this is delicious.
Yeah. Thoughts, Docs? Have you tasted this yet?
Yeah, I'm still trying to identify what I'm tasting. Yeah, I like it. This is delicious.
There's definitely the oak on the tail end of it. There's there's a little bit of the raisiny kind of flavor going on in there. There's.
But would you say that it's got that custardy flavor of the part of the creme brulee that's not the brulee? That's the creme.
The creme.
Yes,
that make sense?
Not the burnt part on the top,
yeah.
but the
It's got a sweetness that's really interesting.
It's not creme brulee. It's just creme.
It's brulee.
It's so.
no, brulee is the hard
It's just a
part.
brulee.
The brulee is the hardest part.
How is the?
I don't speak all that Spanglish.
I think you misquoted there. I believe it's the waiting is the hardest part.
Yeah, the
But
brulee is the hardest.
Oh my gosh!
this
look
is
what we've done.
absolutely delicious. This is
Very nice. I like it.
this is one of the.
There's a powdered chocolatiness that just hints around the edges too. That's
Are you picking up any of the apple? Because I get a little bit of the apple in there as well.
I can go with apple too.
I don't know.
I think that may be one of the finer beers we've tried on this show. I think that's outstanding.
I love the bitterness on the end of it. The bitterness is delicious.
Yeah, because I think when we talk about sweetness in beers, you don't it ain't too much, and you have cider.
Right. Now the regular Tornado Shark is an American strong ale. You can get it in those 4-packs of those not quite bombers that they release from Lone Pint. But this one is sold as a standalone. These run about $8 to $9.
Yeah, this is like, is it a 16.9? Is that what size this is?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they always do 4 of these instead of a regular 6-pack. I like it though; it's very distinctive. Yeah, 16.9 fluid ounces. It's very distinctive. It's easy to see. They have a cohesiveness to their packaging that makes it real easy to find anything from their brewery. But what's really weird about their packaging, I've noticed, is I think a lot of companies really try to match like the packaging to the style of beer. And a lot of times, I don't get that. Like the Gentleman's Relish is a great brown ale, but it doesn't look like a brown ale until you pour it into a glass.
Yeah.
You know, like the packaging doesn't look like a brown ale to me.
Right.
Which is okay, but I really kind of like the whole big bottle.
They've got a consistency
thing.
though across their
Yes.
line to all of the Lone Pints looking similar to each other but unique to everything else.
Yep. I'm going to fix this.
I think that's pretty spectacular. I really do. Docs, what's your final word on that?
No, I love it. It's delicious. I would drink that again. I would serve it to my friends and my family.
It works well with the Enclave Broadleaf too. All right, we've got one more rum that we brought out from the Doc's collection.
Would you mind handing me this one?
And this one's from Cuba. So now I will say I absolutely love the Cuban rums that I've tried before. Obviously, they've just become harder to obtain if they were actually from Cuba. What are the distinguishing characteristics, if there are some, of Cuban rum versus other distillates?
They have large beards and wear a lot of camouflage.
Okay, now we know.
I don't know.
They're hipsters.
I don't know. Listen,
They ride single-gear bicycles.
I got this also at La Maison du Whisky, perhaps the finest spirit store in the world. I actually have 2 locations in Paris. But I brought this one back because obviously you can't get Cuban rum in the United States. I think I may just have admitted to a crime there, but anyway.
Well, at the time,
maybe.
I think it was legal for you to bring it back.
Is there a statute of limitations on that?
Well, no, but see, that's one of the things that was just reversed because
Is there a lawyer in the house?
it was for a while legal to bring back Cuban cigars and Cuban rum for personal consumption. You couldn't bring them back to sell. But that actually has recently been reversed. So as long as you didn't do this in the last couple of weeks.
So this one is a heady elixir. It's 13 years old in bourbon casks in Cuba, 1 year in the Ferran cask, and then an additional year in our Célestin des Anges Ferran cognac. It's the 30-year-old cognac.
That's easy for
in
you to
those
say.
casks. Célestin des Anges, the selection of the angels.
I will tell you that I've had the Havana Club Cuban rum, which I really, really liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some of their Dominican rum, which I thought was okay, but I didn't like nearly as much as I liked their Cuban rum.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious with Plantation, where I have loved the iterations from all these different places. I'm curious to see what the Cuban will be like.
So this one is 100, just a hair under 120 proof.
120.
120.
It's a little hot.
No, that's a hair over 120 proof.
Ian, I believe he's speaking your language there.
It's a little bit hot. I want to see what you think about this. I'm very curious as to your initial.
I can tell by the nose that the proof is high. You can tell it's going to have a little kick to it.
Like on the nose, this has a kind of a chemical-y thing going on. And that's, again, not necessarily in a bad way.
Wow.
Do you like this one?
I do. Now, I will say, this one goes down much more like a whiskey in terms of the heat. Obviously, the proof is higher, so that's where that's coming from. But the rum flavorings, there's the caramel that you get on the tongue, the I'm gonna have to taste it again to pull.
Taste it again.
So, do you remember your friend that brought in the beer that he didn't like it? We want to see what you thought.
Yeah, this is what you did here.
Don't love it.
So you don't love
I don't
this?
love it.
Oh,
I don't.
Docs, I do though.
See, no, but here's the thing.
So
perfect. I'm glad you said that because one thing that my grandfather used to say, if everybody liked the same thing, I have to keep a closer eye on the grandmother.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
So I don't love the flavor profile of this one,
Was your grandfather
we do so many rums and so many different expressions. There was bound to be one that was not my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
That is the one. I'm proud to have it because
Wow.
it's a rarity and it's obvious a lot of care went into it way before we got it and then some. But just know it's not my favorite.
So I'll tell you what I thought, because we actually tried this before the show too, and I'll tell you what I thought about it. The first sip, I didn't have any relation. It was interesting. It's different, but what I found is each consecutive sip, I liked it less and less. There's something in that flavor that built up and just became a little overwhelming for my palate.
There is something on the finish that does strike me as a little odd.
Yeah.
But I love the initial flavor, and I love what it does in the middle of the palate.
It's big, like its initial, like it's almost a palate shocker when you take that sip.
Yes.
It's
Wow.
big on the
It
palate.
certainly is.
Wow. Docs, if you don't think that that's a bottle that you're going to be interested in drinking the rest of, I would be, more than happy to take that off your hands.
I would not be able to sleep at night knowing that my set was incomplete, but you are welcome to come over and visit it anytime you want.
Anytime. All right. Yeah. No, I really wouldn't take your only bottle of that. But
Well,
no,
that's a
I like it,
pricey
though.
bottle
I
too.
like
That
it.
was not.
Yeah, it was
that
like
was not an inexpensive
it
bottle.
was not cheap. It was about $200 American.
Oh wow. I wouldn't have.
But we're
wouldn't have
talking about a
necessarily guessed that,
15-year-old rum here, and a very high proof one, and a very rare one at that. So,
Well, I think it's delicious. Now,
would you like
I
more?
won't go so far as to say it's my favorite, but I would definitely say that's a good rum.
You know, it's funny too because we tasted it before the show, and I had that response. The first sip was interesting. It's huge, and then every sip that I took after just was too much. So when we tried it now, I didn't have that initial. I don't like it again, but the next sip and then
But
the
we've
next
been drinking
sip.
all day.
Well, there's that too.
there is that. Yeah.
I might
Well-
be getting a little palate blind by this point, but again, the same thing happened. I just took a few sips of it, and at each successive sip it just builds up whatever that is that I'm not jiving with on there. It's interesting.
Well, so before we go, let me share this because I wanted to get Doc's input on this new Black Diamond rum from Kiss. Obviously, we don't have it here to taste. Although, if we can get our hands on some, will you come on the show and taste it with us?
Of course,
All right.
but only if we can do makeup. Can we? I call Gene Simmons.
I will
I'll
just,
have to prep a Kiss song on the ukulele.
okay, well, that's fair enough. Isn't there a band of midgets that's done Kiss songs
Little
on the
Kiss.
banjo?
Mini-Kiss.
No, I know about Mini Kiss, but isn't there somebody who's done like a bluegrass Kiss album?
Oh, I don't know that.
I think
I know
that-
there's
think that's
Hazy
out there.
Dixie, but that's ACDC
Yeah, that's
bluegrass.
all right.
Which, by the way, if you haven't listened to it, listen to that.
Yeah. In any case, and by the way, I always thought Mini Kiss would be like the ultimate band to book for like a end of the year Christmas
That'd be
party or
amazing,
something.
wouldn't
Wouldn't
it?
that be awesome? Heavy metal band Kiss, known for, of course, their outrageous stage outfits and face paint. They have announced their intention to enter the spirits market. Their first release from the Kiss Rum Collection, spelled with a K, Kiss Black Diamond Rum, will be made with a blend of Caribbean rums aged for up to 15 years. Named after the final track on their debut album, Black Diamond, the rum will be said to offer a restrained sweetness and a marked oak character on the palate. They go on to describe what it's supposed to give you, but for me, it's better to describe those things after you've actually tasted the rum.
Is it Paul Stanley that's a huge rum fan then, or
I don't know which one of them is. It doesn't say
I
here.
don't think Paul Stanley's drank anything other than herbal tea for decades.
Yeah, I think that
No.
may be
now
right.
Ace Frehley on the other. No, he's still alive.
Yeah.
yeah?
They say when they look at the bottle, they've created a label that embodies everything they associate with Kiss: the attitude, the costumes, the songs, and the makeup they all grew up with. I don't know. To me, the article doesn't tell me who makes the rum, which I'm really interested in knowing. You know, when when Metallica...
The Caribbean's a relatively big place. So
Yes, exactly. Well, when Metallica released Blackened, it was easy to go, oh, yeah, it's another rock band cashing in. But then you found out who the distiller was that they were using to distill the rum, and he's the guy that put Whistle Pig on the map and was the master distiller at Maker's Mark for all that time, which was our good friend who's, I don't know
Dave
why.
Pickerel.
Dave Pickerel, thank you. Maybe it was
Dave Pickerel
the Cuban
seems
rum.
to
I
have a
couldn't call his
very
name out.
and you know, we had him on right before he passed, and he was such a sweet fellow.
He really was.
But he seems to have a very Tupac way of putting out albums
posthumously, yeah.
posthumously. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I think they released the last of his blends from Whistle Pig this year, and of course, Blackened came out after he passed. But
he talked about that when he was on
Right.
the show with us. He was working on
but
that.
at least with Metallica, there was some credibility involved in the distillation of their whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
You could make up your own mind about whether them blasting the whiskey cask with Metallica songs while it aged was a factor or not. But Dave Pickerel knew what he was doing. With the Kiss Black Diamond rum, of course, we'll have to taste it, but I really, really wonder, was there any kind of a reputable rum organization that was involved in helping them craft
I am
this?
confident that it will do as well as their wine label did.
Which is not so good, right? Is it still around? I don't think so.
I am confident it will do as well as their wine label did.
All right. Well, they'll sell at least one because we're going to have to get our hands on it somehow to be able to taste it. But anyway,
Again,
it is
directly affecting sales.
It's about a $42 bottle of rum apparently in U.S. prices. So we'll be on the lookout if any of our spirit buyers at Specs are listening to this. Please stock it at least for a few days so we can grab a bottle and try it, because that's part of what we do here at Smoking and Toasting. We try things so you don't have to.
You said they're doing a whole line of spirits?
They indicated that they were.
Is cold gin after that?
Oh, see, that would make sense.
Cold gin
that
time
would
again?
make sense. Yeah, see, that would
Kiss
make
Army,
sense. Yeah,
signed up
yeah.
in 1978.
Okay, there
All
you
right,
go. I love the things that we discover
What-
about
what-
guests in segment 5.
Well,
You
no,
know?
just give me a couple more minutes. I'm going to do the whole line here. We'll have a tequila for him. We'll have a vodka.
Yeah, see that works for me. Docs, thanks for inviting us over to your home. This is a wonderful place to sit out and have a cigar and some rum and some beers. And we are. I just want to say how big a fan I already am of the Isle of Fiji. That's a regular.
I would
addition
have
to the home
already
bar.
been a fan had I known
Yes,
about it.
Yeah. Ian is so mistreated on this show, as those of you who watch or listen regularly.
I need your address so I can send two of everything.
Yeah, see.
All right, we'll make that happen.
Yeah. Well, you did get the Bird of Paradise shirt. I might.
That's
point that
pretty
out.
amazing. I am
That's a
super
pretty
excited
awesome
about
thing.
that.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome thing. So Isle of Fiji is available pretty much everywhere. Correct. This is not a difficult.
You know
one
what?
To find.
It's all the larger specs. I know that Total Wine is carrying it also, and also some of our better plantation partners that carry a lot of the single cask are carrying it as well. And I'll be perfectly honest, it sold out. It really took us by surprise just how well it's sold. Because typically, whenever we bring out a new product, it doesn't happen overnight. You give it about
It
6
takes
months
a little time to grab some traction.
Yeah.
Right. But this one, boom, like
Well,
that.
that happened to you with the pineapple too, because I remember it was hard to find for a little while.
No, it still is every now and then. But we've gotten a lot. We've in production, but that was it was sort of like just in the bartenders, brains back then. It was sort of just in their secret rum language, and then it hit the general market, and then it got crazy. But this, out of the gate. But the good news is we have 2 more pallets of it landing in Houston this week. So it will, it's just a matter of, it's not a matter of production. It's a matter of getting a boat to France and picking up and bringing it to Texas, which we are working on that right now.
Well, this is Smoking and Toasting, where if you stay to the end of the show, you find out about things you may not have known before, like the fact that bartenders have a secret rum language.
A secret rum language.
I think that's a great place.
Speaking
to
of
end the show.
bartenders,
Yeah.
I went and visited Chris at his restaurant.
Yes.
We just had him on the show.
Yes,
Chris Morris.
I had lunch there yesterday.
What's that?
I had lunch there yesterday.
Oh yeah. So me and my wife went there, and we had drinks and hung out. And I brought him that bottle of gin that I told him that I thought he would enjoy.
Yes.
And he did. He thought it was very interesting. But I also mentioned to him that the drinking news song
Yes.
could also be done by people that aren't me.
Correct.
And I got a text from him saying he's working on it.
Oh, so he's working on a Chris Morris version
Yes.
of the Drinking News song.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is very exciting to me.
It's just the regular song with more F-bombs in it.
It's like the Dan Band.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is a perfect place to end the show. I want to say thanks to our long-suffering producer, Adam, who not only was running himself crazy trying to get the setup to work initially, but also has been far enough away that we haven't been able to pass him any rum or beers during the show. So we want to thank him for his contribution to today's show and for keeping this thing going. And thank you for listening and viewing and checking us out. Smoking and Toasting is produced every week in Houston, Texas. We generally get on the air about 1 o'clock. We were a little late today, but that's okay.
If you
and
miss
the
any of
podcast's
them,
available late.
yeah, if you miss any of them, go hit us up on YouTube. Put it on in the background. It's great makeout background, stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
So
His wife loves it.
no, really, listen to me.
The voice of Specs right here. It's so sexy like the voice of Specs.
What can I say? Get those gift cards. It's time, folks. So anyway, thank you, Docs, for the invite, and as always, for being a friend of the show. We appreciate it. And cheers, everyone. Have a wonderful week. And as we like to say, cheers, y'all.